Greetings this evening from the Hostage Diaries. Tonight I am going to discuss, probably reiterate, but hey, I figure I'll keep piling on the data, showing an effort, because I am unable to accomplish anything else, and break through the barriers of the bubble in order to work with competent minds that have production capabilities rather than I think I would work best as probably a production supervisor, picking projects that I had created in order to then assign tasks, sort of a producer sort of role, rather than do everything solitary, play it as it lies, lone star mentality. That just doesn't work for me because I suffer from ADHD, which is blatantly apparent by if you know anything about it, that it's just blatantly apparent that I lose track of focus so easily, and it's just, it should have been overtly apparent. And it's the same sort of thing when you're imagine trying to focus on a project and with no boundaries, it just spirals off into tangents, which seems to never end up anywhere of competent. And so, yeah, of course. Like I said, I've been so horrifically mismanaged that what can we expect other than, there's not much you can expect. I mean, I've got enough work that I can put some pieces together. It's just, I'm so enthralled in this pursuit of escapism. That's my only goal. And it's been going on for years now, where I don't think about anything except getting out of this captive state bubble where I can hire some confident people and produce some quality work. But then we have the wonder if I'll ever get there, so that's part of why we're documenting this for the understanding of my theoretical context pertaining to multiple levels. See, I used to say, well, I feel like my life is playing chess on 9 or 10 different levels at one time. I said this 5 or 10 years ago. And it was true, because you've got to think, I'm stuck in the neighborhood level playing house games in the hood, but then I'm also on the level of the bureaucracy of the city, then the county, the state, national, international universities. I've got different segments of friends, and you've got the whole art community in Hollywood, New York. I mean, there's so many different levels of. It's not really chess, but more of just globally, especially. I've been opening doors over the years to a lot of different places, and obviously I was figuring out something was amiss here. I've always thought there's something strange. I don't feel like a normal sort of fella. So I started putting pieces together, studying different variations, and this whole understanding of trying to figure out what is exactly going on in here. And of course, I had no help. It was all just speculation, theoretical speculation, while people are trying to tell me to, well, the people that have given away my wallet are selling my body to others. When they sell my body, those that are using my body want the assurance guarantee that they are the only one that has stolen my body. When they sell my organs or sell my parts or sell my blood, it's dope. It is. It really is just blood transfusion doping. My heart, I don't know who got that, but somebody's probably having a good time with that. My brain, yeah, it doesn't really work. The condom factory uses me they skin me for different I mean, there's all sorts of interpretations of industrial relations. The difference between facturing, fictioning is a term that I've coined as of recently. I seem to be the credibility. When I talked about the credibility, lending my credibility to the schematics that's tied into different variations. So my involvement in these schematics adds it, turns it from manufictioning to manufacturing. But since I'm the new Omega Nu there of the manufacturing, what in order to validate the others, they've got to desecrate me and do the whole spin doctor mentality of it. So therefore, anything that I try to accomplish, such as my work, don't really matter because there's so many other people that are accomplishing things. So I'm nothing but a plug, basically, just getting screwed too much for nothing. My pimp's getting paid, though, I guess. I wish they'd throw me some kibble or something every once in a while. At least use a little bit of lube, maybe a little entertainment now and again. Hey, don't rightly know what I could expect other than trying to espouse my interpretation of the coarse vernacular that is streaming through the electronic airwaves of modern society, deviated through sight, interpretation of perspective, whereas most people just, what the hell is this crazy guy talking about? They can't even fathom it because they've stuck in their one. See, most of mental health deals with being satisfied in your livestock feeding tube, your enclosed containing container. Whereas I am seeking a higher purpose on multiple levels of organizational. But see, I don't have a grasp on anything other than my theoretical interpretation. So I can see and I can try to use my wizard skills, my magic evil eye wizard skills, and try to move stuff around. But it doesn't always seem to happen, or I'm not rightly sure what exactly how to work it. So I can't actually feel or touch or make anything, other than by sending these lightning bolts from Zeuslu sort of mentality. So stuck here. And I look at things from various perspectives, and I say, hey, certain people think this certain way because I can see it in their eyes, or I can read their minds to a degree because I understand the characterization. That's part of what I've been understanding as a writer in multiple characterization. I have a very good grasp on varying characterization, which is considered dangerous for most normal folk, but I definitely ain't one of them normal folk, as we will attest. So, I'm just espousing theoretical, what actually seems to be going on. So one day I might be talking about one type of sector and how they might think, because I see it and I write it down. Oh, that's what these people are thinking. So that's where all these tapes will eventually be able to weed through and sort through them and figure out this pertains to this pertains to this. I've probably got 75 hours. So one of these days, if I don't accomplish anything other than documenting my historical waste of life, other than being a plug, getting screwed with no lube and no fringe benefits. So, trying to solve the equation to put the parameter of my energy, feng shui, the chakras, align the energies to flow. But I understand. They knew what they were doing, and I say the various factions that are utilizing my energy by plugging into me. There are different plugs into me. Those are the factions that I speak of that plug into me, and they power networks, which I call the mob. There are different networks of people that are plugged into me that are different mob factions, utilizing my energy and communication capabilities, because a cat done got my tongue and stole my wallet. Because you can always buy a tongue. That's another reason. In this world of material girl consumerism, of course. So I probably had to pay for the material girl Madonna and get none of the fun of the party going on, while in actuality, it was easy because you can buy anything. That's one of the reasons I'm shrunk down to such a controlled substance state of being. So, this calling nature of, and this is one of the things, people are stuck, that's when I live at such a low level of society, so I am trying to escape to a higher level where I can actually afford to travel and fitting, and live in fitting environments. I want to be able to fit to my body, but I'm not allowed to, so my body's been sold. and they don't like the management. They'd rather control. They are proud independents that have emancipated themselves from the body and sold off parts of it. And they don't want to pay nothing. So I tried to figure out different ways of doing it. Oh, the calling game. It seems to be this nature of tic-tac-toe, the war games with Matthew Broderick and the dog named Bo. And they were trying to, and that's another one of those clues that should have been invented, that Louisiana completely dropped the ball on. So, the war games mentality of the tic-tac-toe. So what seems to be going on is there are these people who have a decent life to a degree. A moderate, they have a much better life than me, so it seems like they're living large. In actuality, though, they're still in the middle, stuck. They're exposed. The problem is, it really is a house of cards out there, and if this house of cards collapses, those in the middle are going to get crunched. And those that are playing these games that have the keys to escape are going down with the ship. And I'm trying to provide myself with at least the golden parachute to be able to, I have no chance. I'm I'm strapped to the mast right now going down with the ship. I can't do anything. Whereas I have a strong vested interest because if we would have been run properly with my help, the ship wouldn't be a house of cards. So, it seems this nature of calling things as far as distribution of rights, because the rights and what it is like there's different things that people can use. So it's like that's my territory, you can't use it. But it's like this tic-tac-toe game of jumping and things like that. So if one faction of the mob that's plugged into me working for some netherlord over there calls or puts its mark, it's all about the mark. This is the interpretation of that. But whereas we actually had a bank that my name was there as a banking entity to try to protect a pool of assets that has been pillaged. So I'm trying to save banking credibility. Whereas most of these poor people are using my pillaged influence and trying to expand their horizons. So I'm trying to protect, whereas it's been horrific. I wouldn't have much of a case if things would have been run properly. But if things would have been run properly, I wouldn't be in the horrific straits that I'm in because I would probably be living decently. And so the problem is it's been horrifically mismanaged. Therefore, I've got a strong case for trying to save credibility as far as the realm of which I am trying to lord over. And it's because it's been mismanaged. Because that gives me, that's the problem. When something's wrong, let's say the population can't control itself, the spending, somebody needs to stand up. That's where it gets into this Lord of the Ring, Rise of the Kings, because they foresaw the problem of forces battling each other and therefore needing a strong central figure to fix the problem. That could be a bridge. But the problem is both sides decided they attacked me and burned down the bridge. Now they're just shooting arrows over the thing. So now I'm stuck as the hostage, as you would say. I'm used for leverage or a tool or a key or validation or drugs or whatever any sort of mangly interpretation might be grizzled upon. So then the various factions that are warring are trying to claim more property. And then they try to, by claiming the property, is they put together these networks of power. And then it's like a poker hand. Whoever's got the most power gets the pot, that sort of thing. But it's this calling mentality. If we call it, see, if some faction calls it, they will sit there, mercenaries will jump on that property, utilize it, and look, even though the people that are actually playing the game are not actually they're moving pieces, but they're not actually using it. So other factions can't use it. So around me, I can't use a lot of what's around me. I can't get to my lands because other people can use them, but I'm surrounded on others' lands that I can't use. Therefore, because other people have called them, and they have the backing of mercenary militias that are funded. And the problem is, like I said, my wallet has been lifted and is used in bribing other mercenary factions to keep me out of my containment land. See, I have a lot of property that I could utilize that is in my banking interest, but I'm not allowed to because they're trying to sell it off. And so they keep me in areas where I can't. That's one of the methods of captivity, is keeping me in areas that are called by other people who don't necessarily have the right to, because they don't have the credibility or the vested stake. It's contested grounds, if anything. So I don't write. It's just a strange vision that I see of this calling mentality, these claim jumping of what's going on and variations, and then because of the price of what's derived from the land and the actual cost of land, what supersedes and what rights are given then from the materials that are derived from the resources of a land. There's a strange thing about that. So there's a ton of energy that produces a ton of wealth, or a ton of refined chemical processes that produces a ton of wealth that is a lot more than the land itself. So what rights are derived through that? That's where also you get into the sketch area. And through that, they are allowing these other factions to contain me in order to utilize my influence, seemingly, theoretically. And that's my interpretation of what's going on. So, it's kind of like people want these lords, if they will, are trying to lord over certain factions by being of some group. And then somebody like me, I'm locked out of my lands. Well, like I said, the whole factor was based upon my inability to utilize my wallet, because somebody had lifted my wallet and they were distributing it through. Well, LSU was using my wallet, definitely. And they were trying to be the upper echelon rank. It was rank. And so I provide a lot, but I'm not allowed. I'm superseded, even though they should put me on top because I have a wider scope. So because I'm on the bottom, I can't even control. Even though it's a small area, there's a lot bigger rounding areas. But since I'm unable to control the whole thing, other factions are moving in on the big picture. But since the greed is localized, the localized has buried me. These bigger, wide-ranging lands and resources are being usurped by other factions. So they benefit from me being pressed down by the local authority. So therefore, it's like tying my hands while somebody being held down while somebody goes in and claim jumps, that sort of mentality, and misuses the property because the lands were, they're trying to redefine the process of what actually matters and goes on. So this whole claim jumping, calling it, is just crazy. I mean, truly, truly crazy, because it leads to a quantitative, just mass consumption, quantitative battle of, yeah, it's just piled on competitive eating is really all it is. And then it's sumo wrestling, which ends up in a horrific state of affairs, but they don't really care. They're trying to pressure some person. It's a pressure tactic for other parts of the globe, which is bad business, because you got, it's just bad business in my estimate. Long term, it's going to be the problem is it's going to be a lot harder to fix down the road. In another 50 years or in 10 years or 20 years, whenever they decide the kids are tired of their pissing contest, and I'm talking about, they decide, well, let's get responsible here and try to fix some of these problems that we caused because we had such a bad competitive eating pissing contest all over the world. Then it won't. My voice of reason spoke in trying to head off these problems before they get too bad, because the world, because of network connectivity. And the funny part is, the USA preaches, we want freedom everywhere. We want to free all the people. If they freed all the people of the world, let's say all the Chinese, all of a sudden, hey, we're free. We want 2 cars. We all want a McMansion. Who's going to be, first of all, where's the labor going to come from? I already know they're going to try to ship it off to Africa. No doubt about it. Africa is going to be the next step of labor. But we're talking about the amount of if it, it just doesn't, the math gets really crooked. So they really have to thank the oppressive nature of certain regimes for keeping their people somewhat contained and not being greedy pigs like the USA. Because, I mean, there's certain factions, like Europe is a qualitative controlled environment, whereas they are able, those you can grow bigger. But when you just get into the feedlots, eventually you have to cut off the feedlot. You know, you gotta, when you just can't, the competitive eating has to end to a degree. It's just bad business. That's when they're starting to jump on my toes, and then they're starting to look down at South America as validation for it, even though it's not necessarily smart business. It's bad for my banking facility, but that's one of the motives of me being pressed down and controlled so other factions can utilize it. And mostly it's just a pissing contest, arm wrestling, whereas there's so many variations of conflict in the nation and the world, and I just happen to be a very big lever, an power lever, and so but I'm unable to use my own power because they gambled on this kidnapping saddled leverage. They wanted to saddle to prove they were tough or prove they were. It just doesn't make any sense. So I'm the Lone Ranger's trigger finger. That's sort of it's just insane beyond all comprehension because of the opportunity cost, and there's opportunity loss. I mean, we are just throwing away so much money and losing just so much leverage because we are being sabotaged by incompetent, childish morons. But those that are benefiting from our demise cheer on, goad on these incompetent, childish morons. And there doesn't seem, the country club law doesn't really care. They screwed me in the first place. They sort of realized that by locking me out without my wallet. Well, they lifted my wallet first and started producing all of these. They just get the upper level. They get the penthouse in the top third of the building. And I get locked out downstairs because I'm providing power to the whole building. And they don't want me in because they might have to margin call is what they're really scared about. And auditing the assessment and who's been spending what on what and why. It's quantity, quality. Demand is not what the supply. See, what the definition of demand is these days is what is determined by the supply. But in actuality, demand should be a control balance mechanism, whereas in the definition today, supply actually determines demand rather than the demand being a controlled environment of the supply, so, sort of like fences around the supply rather than just stampede, trample, decimate the entire principal foundation, erode it all down to dust, get dust bunny storms going on, and you get this whole idiocracy where you're feeding the crops with sports drinks, what seems to be happening these days. And it's bad for business in the big term because you can't look at it in minute terms when the whole world is watching because of the viral effects. So, control precedences of state. The cash is king is dangerous. And that comes from the energy derived from the source, therefore validating itself. So not only am I supplying energies from the source, me being the banking institute that I represent as a capital principle, but then also those that are deriving power. So then, in order to prove they're worth something, it starts into this competitive eating nature of compiling cash as much as you can, and therefore the source of your energy also has to back the cash that is produced. So I am used to supply energy to start them off, but as soon as people compile cash, that's where it gets into all this cash that's compiled on behalf of, in lieu of, then that's where I'm also having to back the cash. I provide the energy and I back the cash, which is a double whammy. Bad news for me because they're even more desperately addicted. It's all about the addiction. And they seem to be addicted to me, whereas I'm not allowed to use my body or my wallet. And I would like to have some fun in my life because, my life isn't nothing but a big waste because people don't understand or how to utilize properly the parameters of our existence because we were hornswoggled, bamboozled, hoodwinked, and knocked out, coma, amnesia, overboard mentality, brainwash mostly, brainwash. Well, we were just, and I can remember it. It's so hard. Well, that's one of the reasons that I suffered. So I was always an uppity slave, you know. I was always uppity because I always had them visions of grandeur. But they, you know, that's one of the reasons they beat me down. Don't let me get up. That's one of the reasons this omega hack buries me at the bottom. And even that is a low level of the bottom of the, it's way down there. Especially the way that it can be interpreted. Then I got lowered, and I just keep going lowered and lowered and lowered and lowered. Well, see, the better I became and the clearer I started thinking, the lower I got because they realized the dumber I was, I got to party at least and was around people. If I was acting like a moron, I was around some decent folk. But when I started acting all uppity smarts like, they got rid of, they buried me way down deep because they knew. That's one of the reasons I was working five. That's why they had me fry cooking. I know I was always in the kitchen in the fry cook, or, you know, I could have real easily got a job bartending at a nice upscale restaurant where I could have met some people in order to interact competently. But if I ever start, you know, that's not allowed because then I might realize it's all about the brainwashing effect upon who are you really. And the body snatchers want to utilize my body, so they trade places with me to where they put me down way down low, and my family itself. So we're stuck in, at least being solitary. I am antsy and agitated enough that I am questioning the bounds of reality to try to reach certain plateaus. Even if I did have help around me, I would still be pursuing the same pursuit. I wouldn't be lackadaisical or settling for the pursuit. I guess I don't know. We'd have to see. I don't. It just doesn't make any sense. Then they try to play it's always trying to act like the authority and punishing me for the should have been arranged marriages that I did not accept because I was unable to be a competent member of the group. So it's just very strange. So the poison, it's like it is poison. That's basically how it is. When somebody is deluded from and unable to react competently, it's just years of poison. And then at least Baton Rouge they're trying to make an example. Well, they wanted revenge. Revenge was not very smart. You should not revenge. They should not have used us for revenge. That's stupid because we had too much power, and they can't utilize the power competently. Like right now, when the Super Bowl was going on, and I could have had people from all over the globe. What? Right? They could. New Orleans is good at having, they can handle the Los Angeles crowd, the New York crowd, but a certain thing that I could have done would have been European, Asian, Middle Eastern, South American people and tried to. I had a plan years ago. I wanted to build like a 60-story high-rise on the other side of the Marigny in the Bywater district, and then find a place for a new Superdome. And so expands the downtown region further towards that area, even though it is low. It would have had to have been built on 2 or 3 levels up, which could have been done real easy. You can build up real easy these days. Just build it 3 or 4 stories off the ground and put parking underneath and make it look real nice. And then build the building on top and build it on stilts. No problem at all. A 50-story tower of luxury with a luxury condominiums, offices, and European sort of, or New York Fifth Avenue sort of shopping, Beverly Hills Rodeo Drive shopping, which New Orleans really doesn't have a lot of for certain reasons because they played the small ball route. So, but of course, there's all sorts of plans for that. I wanted to try to legalize marijuana in certain sectors of New Orleans, Orleans Parish only, as an additional sort of thing. That was what, could fly that any sort of way. I don't think it's good for the whole state, but certain parishes maybe potentially as a tourist, kind of like Amsterdam is in Europe. Just do it in New Orleans to add even more flavor to the city, European sort of thing. And well, it all goes back to me being a humanitarian. There are most factors, and most people in the U.S. hate other people tremendously. They have regret, or they have an animosity towards. I'm more of a humanist, at least, and so I'm trying to alleviate suffering in any way possible, as far as alleviating the pain to a certain degree. So that was just one of the things there. But building a new stadium was a plan that I had that could be financed on certain levels, and because it has to be done relatively soon. But of course, I'm not allowed to do anything. That's why I wasn't allowed to have a part of the rebuilding in New Orleans, even though I sent notes to the city council people that I knew. Or I'm not allowed to because they want to bury me. They don't want me. The politicians or the certain neighborhood factions don't want me involved, or they just seem to they at all don't want, because they don't want me to do anything good. That's another reason I'm not allowed to have. I can't be an altruist. I mean, it's I'm in such a piss poor mood all the time because I can't even do anything that it makes it. It's just one of those negative influences because I've been poisoned for the most part, and you got to play it as it lies. So that kryptonite spear stuck through my back with poison on it. That the wound that they worship, play it as it lies. You know, can't get it fixed or anything like that. It's just the most asinine thing you could ever imagine of what might potentially be. And it's bizarre because I pay for all sorts of things. Even though I have friends, I've had friends from probably 100 different countries or worked with people. When I was in high school, I had friends that were African American, I had friends that were Mexican American, I had friends that were um, from everywhere, basically. I hung out with, we went on road trips with, I had them over to the house, and they went to their house, that sort of stuff. When I was in college, I did the same sort of thing. When I lived in Dallas, I managed a restaurant in a gay area of Dallas, and I had gay employees, I had feminist employees, I had minority employee. I had all sorts of different variants, and I did not. My track record is really good, and that's a threat. So that's a real threat, to be honest with you, because anything that makes me look good makes those that screw me over look bad. When I was in, probably worked when I was in um, Glacier, worked with people from 10 or 15 different countries. Same thing in Jackson and Aspen, 15, 20, 30 countries there, and but it's strange because they just didn't, Baton Rouge or New Orleans didn't want to see develop me. They wanted to keep me as the little league, localized, so they could keep containment. So anything I did abroad, if I can, I never had more than, like I said, if you see enough money to really go do anything anywhere else. And I looked around, just couldn't find anything. So I always ended up coming back. Not to mention my name's on the state, and I was trying to build something, but I couldn't get anything done. It was just people were trying to bury me. And so anything that I did good elsewhere, I got punished for, to prove I was an uppity slave. So they beat me and had to beat me down and send me back to the fry cooking duties or something. I mean, it's insane, beyond any stretch of the imagination. Insane, because they bet on screwing me, and so they had to play it. When you stab somebody, you got to play it as it lies. We stabbed you, so if you ever get well, you might get pissed. Hey, we realize, hey, you stabbed me. Hey, you might get pissed. So that's kind of like bad, blood there when you stab somebody or shoot them. Hey, we shot you. Hey, we buried your body. That's one of the reasons they are so desperate to keep us buried down. And it's healthcare now. I'm telling you, it's now. They screwed up. I'm telling you, if the facts came out then, this is theoretical, but there's a lot of. You can make things factual. And they had to dirty us up as they try. They dragged me through the mud and all these bad things, to where I couldn't really, when you just don't have any options. And they know I have a wandering eye, as you would say, because of my ADHD. So I turned, but still, it's beyond any stretch of the imagination. So they basically sold to the chemical plants. And now they sold their soul to factions in Georgia, and they certain parts sold their soul to factions in Texas, and some sold their soul to the Yankees, and some are trying to sell it. You know, they're just, I mean, so Louisiana is a divided state that is easy pickings. Anybody can walk in and control it. And I'm trying to, because it has international ramifications because of the wells that are drilled into it or the tunnels that are dug, and the mismanagement gives me at least a foundational step to figure something out and try to put it to pieces. At least to, I mean, for Christ's sakes, I mean, is it too much to ask to build an estate? I mean, I could sell a few books and buy an estate, or, you know, sell something. This story, I've got enough material on here that I could probably sell 2 or 3 books or films and putting things together in different pieces. I mean, there's all sorts of, but the problem is I'm not allowed, I'm surrounded by morons most of the time because that's the best way, you know, hey, it's like that Harrison Bergeron book where the more, and I'm telling you, I read that in 9th grade or 8th grade, yeah, it was 9th grade at Catholic High, I was only there 1 year, and I'm telling you, that's one of those marks or scars that they worship. There's certain things in my life, when it's always the whatever could screw me the most. And what's the omega way of screwing you? They'll fix it to me. Harrison Bergeron is a omega way of screwing me. Basically, you take somebody with any abilities and you fuck it up. You basically, if they're smart, he had to wear a helmet that shocked his brain to where he couldn't think straight. And if he could see, they tried to blind him. They made him wear stuff so he could blind. And if he could jump, they made him wear weights so he couldn't jump. And that sort of mentality. So anything I was good at, that's probably why, you know, I mean, if you look at the state of being, it's handicapping to be fair. It's always like anything I'm good at, they think this is God. The God. We want to be right down the middle of the fairway. So if I'm good at something or if I'm bad at something, if I'm good at something, they hammer me back towards the middle. If I'm bad at something, I do it for a while. They make me do the things I'm worst at until I get to, if I get good at them, though, I have to stop because I can only go so far. I'm only allowed to progress to that middle. It's always stuck in this damn middle. Down the fairway mentality. I think that it's just insane. These are interpretations of the energy. See, the world is filled with turbulent energy elements that flow. And I can see it. It's like when Neo could see the Matrix, because the code is built upon I am a central figure in a galaxy that rotates around me. So I can identify the energy that rotates around me. Whereas most people don't have a clue because I am privy to the information of my galaxy or my universe, because I am a central body based upon the St. Louis Cathedral, King of France, King Cake mentality, theoretically, of course, and the Mississippi River and the state government. But there's all these factions that want to utilize it. They don't want any sort of competition, and I am a big competition because, especially since they screwed me bad, and right now the system is really screwed up. I mean, honestly, it's fucked up bad, and they don't want. It's right now would be the perfect time in Europe for some big central aristocracy figures to stand up with charisma that could lead the people, both sides, that would unite behind them, fix the problems. But see, that's part of why there's all these faction schisms. There's all these little factions that are even more difficult. And then the media doesn't like, regardless. They think every central figure as a totalitarian dictator genocide. That's the way they think. That's why they hate anyone with any real authority other than the machine. It's all about the machine, which is a conglomerate of parts working together, regardless of how gunked up it gets or how screwed up the whole. The problem is the machine mutates. The mutations of the code in the machine is a constant competitive battle. That's one of the bad things about machines is, in a ultra-competitive materialistic society, the machine mutates rapidly to where you lose. It's just a spiraling storm, tangents everywhere, going off and it just completely loses shape. It's a blob, and the machine. They don't seem to care about anything that other than worshiping the machine itself, regardless of what happens, because it is a natural. It's a unnatural, natural occurring monstrosity. It's bizarre. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm just trying to put some pieces together, and they don't necessarily like competition, even though they worship competition, because they like their brand of competition if it's within their little ballpark. But any big competition, they just don't like. It's like the Dome. They'll play in the Dome all day, but the big city or the state, they don't want to have anything to do with any sort of thing. So I just try to sit here and figure out what exactly my damage is and assess it and try to fix it, but with the tools that I'm not allowed, because I am who knows what.